Good afternoon, and you're very welcome to the latest installment in the Power Hour series here at Irish Times Training. My name is Dave McGee, and I'm the Managing Director here at Irish Times Training. And this is the fifth and last installment of the Power Hour series for 2023. And we've had over 1,000 people join us this year so far, accessing content around coaching, communication, change management, and digital. And the last installment is going to focus on the topic of resilience. And not a better time to do that as we come to the end of a very, very busy 2023. On today's session, we're not just going to talk about the traditional folk role of resilience, but more the adaptive resilience and how to tackle it with the modern challenges we face today, and looking at your inner capacity. I'm delighted to have with us today our expert in this area, Rochelle Bogan. Rochelle, as you can see, is a master executive in leadership and performance coach, but also has expertise in psychology, in neuroscience, and also clinical nutritionist therapist. So we're in very good hands, safe hands for the next 30 or so minutes. A little bit of housekeeping. The session is going to be recorded, so you can review and digest afterwards and share with colleagues within the business. We have a chat functionality, so I know Rochelle is going to be doing a little bit of using that during the session, and also the option for some questions, which will leave some time at the end to facilitate. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Rochelle and enjoy the session.
Thank you, and hi everyone, and it would be great to say hello to you in the chat box. You might just put in a quick hello, make sure that I have the chat function in front of me correctly as well. Yay, good job. Yay, great. Actual humans I'm talking to. Brilliant. Always good to know. So, as you know, today is all about resilience. And again, we want to think about resilience and what that means in the modern world. So familiarity with the word resilience might be there, but what it actually takes in the environment we're in today is something quite different. So be prepared to have an open mind to this. And I'm going to be sharing some slides. What will work well is thinking about what it's going to take for you to be here, to share, to be vulnerable, to participate in the chat box as we grow along, and to collaborate together. And again, it's going to take a little bit of energy at the same time to make sure that you pay full attention. And that, you know, the reason for that also will become apparent as we move through the slides. One of my favorite things to start off talking about resilience is about understanding how to empower resilience, the power to be resilient. So Viktor Frankl, you may have heard of him before. The invitation is to look him up after this. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, there is the power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So ultimately, in order to maintain power, and we need power in order to be resilient, we have to create a space in order to be able to make better decisions. And decision making and making the right choices at the right time is a very granular experience. So it's about understanding that where are the choice points throughout your day that will help you actually be more thriving rather than just surviving, which will be accessing more of the resilience that you have in the world behind your eyes. So think about your personal response ability. So your ability to respond, but at the same time, the gap between response and ability is sometimes for people the thing that we don't pay enough attention to, making sure that there is a response ability within you. So by the end of this 30 minutes or so, I will be sharing with you a little model to take away with that you will be able to start getting much more conscious control over how well you are responding versus reacting. Traditional resilience is defined, as you can see from the screen, as making a comeback after a setback, or dealing with change without getting too bent out of shape. And I'm sure that's probably a familiar way that resilience is defined for you. However, in the environment we're in today, the context has so much shifted 5 years ago, it looked different. 10 years ago, it looked really different. 20 years ago, it looked really different. Our now normal environment has a growing amount of complexity, a growing amount of intensity, a growing amount of challenge. So I am curious, in the chat box, please, if you could answer for us, what is it that's driving complexity today? So in the world you're in the environment around you, in the world in front of your eyes, what in your view really drives complexity? How would you answer that? Social media, technology, excellent. What else? What drives complexity? We're definitely in the digital realm today. Keep going. Change, absolutely. What else? What do you think drives complexity? Ambiguity, uncertainty, you're getting there. Great. Specifically, the pace of change, absolutely. Perceived social, yes, perceived social situations and our responses to them, expectations, over complexity, poor communication, brilliant. So what do you think drives intensity? What do you think drives the intensity of today? Why is today intense? People, love it. What else? Pace, absolutely. What else? Brilliant. Keeping up with change, demands, goals, pace, expectation, brilliant. And what drives growing challenges? Think about the world. What's driving the growing challenges that we're all facing today? Too much access, money, love it. And money and uncertainty around money for sure. Resources, pressure. Yeah. Again, think about what's happening in the world today that's driving all of those three: complexity, intensity, challenges, lack of truth and trust, brilliant, wars, absolutely, floods, brilliant, flood of information and inputs, brilliant. So my invitation to you is to actually do yourself a map, because sometimes it's about saying to ourselves, actually, there's an awful lot going on in the world in front of our eyes, where our human system is expected to be able to cope. However, what is the truth of that? We need to find out. Part and parcel of understanding all of what happens in the world in front of our eyes has a lot to do with how our autonomic nervous system receives and perceives threats, gets hijacked, is triggered, amongst other things. But ultimately, what's it doing inside your system? And we need to make sure that it's not causing the kind of stress that is going to biologically cause us to be unwell. So you might have heard of these expressions before. We're in the age of mass distraction and endurance, driven by the VUCA nature of our external world, and more current language around that is that we're in a BANI world, which stands for brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. And the incomprehensible piece is really interesting, because incomprehensible means it's not logical. And at the same time, our human systems expect things to be quite logical. How does this fall as an order? So as we think about how to manage ourselves and be resilient, we have to accept that as a human system, we're a nervous system that is actually quite chaos capable. Now, we have the ability to be able to develop our complex system into a way that can manage the chaos and put it into a proper order and context, start taking personally the things that are relevant, and much more impersonally the things actually that really are none of our business and we shouldn't be paying too much attention to. But it doesn't mean at the same time that where you might be is that you might be easily hijacked away from being your best version of who you are and peaked more towards survival versus actually your ability to be able to thrive more. And to do that well, you have to work on the world behind your eyes, and you have to develop more capability, more competence, and access more resources in order to be ultimately more resilient and thriving. And that is what I do with most senior leaders that I work with. Part of performance and leadership is actually how are they thriving well, and resilience is the backbone of that. So more in terms of context, the world in front of our eyes is full of modern distractions, and we're in also an attention economy. So when we think about the impact of how the world in front of our eyes impacts the world behind our eyes, what I often say is that our biology is impacted by our biography, so how we live our lives. Because at the same time, when we really realize what goes on in our nervous system, how does our nervous system operate, it's activating a biological chemistry of stress and threat if it's not brought into self-regulated way of being that's much more reward-based, reward-focused. So there's an energy that has to go into building a bridge between moving from stress and threat, because quite often we're peaked outside our conscious control by our autonomic nervous system, and much more focused on what is it that I need to be able to do to be able to drive myself out of reward, given that I can sense check what it is that's meaningful to me, how do I perceive the world, what's really an actual threat versus my nervous system getting hijacked and urged off onto different things that will distract me. So we've got to just be kind to ourselves as we realize this. The modern reality as well is that multitasking is a lot of how we get stuff done. And we can be quite great at multitasking, but it costs us at the end of the day. And I've often had clients say to me, actually, it feels like there are so many tabs open in my brain at the same time that I'm like a squirrel, I keep getting distracted from one thing to the other. So you have got to be consistently asking yourself the question, out of 100%, what percentage of attention are you losing when your mind is not focused? And really, if you can help yourself answer that, then you will pay much more attention to how do you focus well, and on what does that actually give you, one thing at a time versus having multiple tabs open, multiple screens open, allowing yourself be distracted as well by multiple things, all costing us nervous energy, leaking power. And I do love that quote at the end. He who chases two rabbits catches neither. Again, it is all about focus and attention, particularly in terms of keeping our power and keeping our energy. Another bit of cool research around modern reality. A lot of us have a tendency to overschedule ourselves. And again, you can see from the brain scans there, what happens when you don't take breaks between meetings. Your performance goes down. Your stress levels within your brain starts to overheat, and you will not be paying attention. It will actually be that you've dumbed yourself down a little bit, versus actually pausing and regulating and really planning so that you can pay attention to the who, the what, the where, the how of what you want to walk away with from different meetings as it comes along. So we're checking in on things that are costing us energy, costing us power, and what can we do about that? The other thing, and you mentioned it in the chat box earlier on, was that we're also in a data overload situation. So what does that look like on a daily basis? That digital temptation drives habit building of mindless checking your phone. And that is a big challenge. You start to accidentally build habits that you'd no plan to build. And suddenly you find yourself for no reason whatsoever scrolling around, and suddenly there's time gone, your attention is gone, and your focus away from what should be most meaningful and prioritizing for you is gone into somebody else's agenda. Somebody else is trying to get your attention, sell you something, distract you in some way. So our attention is really important that we grab hold of, and we don't leak power, don't leak energy to that. So again, one of the questions I'd love to leave you to consistently ask yourself after this is, how long does it take for your brain to shift focus? What are the types of things that distract you? And then what are you actually going to do about that? So instead of trying to build more resilience, you're saving energy and saving power. And again, that will pay off by not peaking your biology and your whole system towards threat and stress for no reason. The other thing that happens as a result is that we get addicted to our trains of thought. When those habits are built up unconsciously, we start to get quite addicted to the thoughts we have, and we start to believe our perceived reality. So ultimately, our ability to control our thoughts is fundamental to our well-being and ultimately our resilience. Our ability to control our thoughts. Our thoughts should not be runaway trains. Our thoughts should be driven out of what it is we've decided that we're going to pay attention to, what it is that we're decided to prioritize, what's meaningful to us, what do we want to walk away with from this week, this month, this year, this next 5 years. How are you going to actualize yourself? What's your legacy going to be? And ultimately, sometimes it feels like, for most clients, when clients are in front of me, they're like, actually, it feels like I'm on the run the whole time. And that's familiar to me too. 10 years ago, I was in a corporate job, and I used to say at the start of every week, see, at the end of the week, I'm going on the run. I mean, and that's, now I can think, is crazy, but it was totally my conditioned way of being. And because everybody else was doing it, I thought it was what everybody, I didn't really pay much attention to it. However, it does cost you biologically, because when you run your whole system out of adrenaline as a way of being and cortisol as a way of being, there's no doubt you are on track absolutely to burn out. So you've got to say to yourself, what can I do about that, and how do I intervene? So as we think about our poor little human systems, we've got to think about ourselves as whole systems that are capable of building more capacity, competence, and ability in the world behind our eyes, and shift ourselves away from becoming survival machines on high alert. Our nervous system is an amazing autonomic way of setting ourselves up, and it's autonomic. So again, a lot of how you've been set up has been informed with how you've been brought up, what are the things that you've exposed yourself to, what track you've been on. But however, we can do loads to be able to actually start to calm down the things that trigger us, self-regulate ourselves instead of allowing other things regulate us. How do we sense and perceive the world in front of our eyes actually has a lot to do with how do we actually slow ourselves down enough to develop in the gap between stimulus and response, the responsibility piece. How do we create that ableness in the middle? So in summary, our now normal workplace, our now normal personal life is, excuse me, we are under unprecedented levels of distraction. So be kind to yourself as we're just figuring this out. You're under unprecedented levels of distraction. So never before have people tried to get our attention as much, or things tried to get our attention as much. Your human system isn't capable of adapting quick enough, but we are capable of building extra skills, capacities, and competence, given we pay attention to what do we need to do. We also have been conditioned to want to help others first before ourselves. And you might have heard the old adage, you want to put the oxygen mask on everybody else first before yourself. In fact, we all know that you've got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, ultimately. We're expected to be able to cope. We are expected to be able to cope. However, we need the newer skills, abilities, and competences in order to be able to cope well, given the nature of the world in front of our eyes. So that you have to be kind to yourself with that too. So we're living out of nervous system autonomic reactions versus intentional responses. And that's where we need to put our attention and focus. What do we need to do? And we're living with negative emotional attractors as the norm. Negative emotional attractors as the norm. So we want to be paying attention to what are positive emotional attractors as the norm that we want to create instead. And ultimately, that can look like our mind gets really busy, where our mind is saying to us, oh my God, please shut up. There's a lot going on in that brain of mine. But ultimately, our mind is really kind to us because it tries to solve all of those problems all of the time and all at the same time. So we've got to be kind to ourselves because our mind is trying to mind us. But if it's trying to solve all that at the same time, what it's not doing is helping you fulfill your best potentials in the different areas of your life. So you've got to be able to say, actually, I'm either going to resource my brain and my mind and put it to work for all of that, or I'm going to start building the inner capacity, skills, and competencies in order to be able to make sure that I'm paying attention to what's really meaningful for me and what will help me really succeed and then help the people around me. And you have the ability to do that really well. So modern resilience, given all of what's in the world in front of your eyes, we need to level up. The level up piece, now we call it adaptive resilience. So adaptive resilience as a definition is the capacity of a complex system. So you're a human, you are a complex system. The capacity of a complex system to continually change and adapt, given the reality, and we've just described the reality of the world, yet remain within critical thresholds. And that's what's key. You've got to figure out for you, your unique fingerprint lifestyle. Nobody wants what you wants. Nobody has the lifestyle that you have. So again, it's saying to you, what is it that you need to understand about yourself, and where are your critical thresholds? What do you need to do to be able to manage yourself better, regulate yourself better? And ultimately, we need an active and well-developed set of skills and behaviors that can help you rely on, and you can rely on them when you need to be able to help you bounce back and endure. So it's those two things. You've got to bounce back, but you also need to be able to endure the chaos in the world in front of our eyes and do that really well. In the modern world then, what is necessary for you in order to stay within your critical thresholds? So mine aren't going to be the same as yours. So you've got to look at it as an individual. And again, that's often the work I'm doing with lots of senior executives to go, you need to be able to really understand the landscape of your life and how and what success looks like to you. And what are you going to actually take responsibility for that? So when we think about making sure then adaptive resilience and an understanding of it, adaptive resilience is the learned adaptive responsiveness to adversity and challenge. So what is it that's challenging you? What is it that you're going to be able to do to be able to help yourself not leak energy and power? So the first step is to ensure that you become aware of where do you give away too much energy, or to whom, or leak power, or give your power away. I don't know if you've ever heard of that as an expression before. So that is the challenge. We've got to be able to make sure that we hold our power and keep our energy, and make sure that we don't give it away too easily. And whole system means whole system. And I've said as a human, you're a complex system, but whole system, as if we divide our human system, we have a head brain, a heart brain, and a gut brain. So oftentimes we might get stuff done well, but then we don't pay enough attention to our heart, or we don't pay enough attention to our intuition or the things that are guiding us. And again, I've often worked with clients and they are so aware of what they should be doing, and they're not listening to themselves. They've been caught up in getting confused in what are the things that they actually, know that they should be doing. So again, it's really learning that, self-trust, and that self-trust piece sometimes takes a bit of energy to be able to restore if it's not there to where it should be, and really build up a belief system that you can trust yourself and make sure that you are managing the world in front of your eyes really well. The stress regulation piece is really key. Stress regulation and resilience go hand in hand together, and stress regulation is a critical component of adaptive resilience. But there is a massive misconception about what stress really means. So there is two types of stress, and we're talking about then what is the biology behind it, because that's what's really interesting. So stress, there is two types. Number one, eustress. Number two, distress. Most people, when they say the word stress, they're meaning distress. However, we want to challenge ourselves to really get a great perspective from a biology perspective. Eustress is the form of stress that has healthy benefits on health, motivation, performance, and well-being. Eustress is the type of stress that you create because it's meaningful to you. You've put challenges in front of yourself. You have things that you want to achieve. You have things that you design in because it's really meaningful to you to achieve X. You want this type of outcome. That's eustress. The biology behind that drives much more serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin than distress. Now, distress is the type of stress from a biology perspective is born out of adrenaline and cortisol. And it is the type of stress that has a negative biological impact. But they're the stresses that we're not inviting in. They're the ones that, in fact, we're trying to avoid. But they're also the ones that are created by the environment, which are also outside your conscious control. So again, the perspective piece is essential. So not all stress is bad. So we've got to say to ourselves, how much of it, though, have we created a story around it being distress versus creating the correct narrative going, if I look at the next year, and if you look at my next year, I've created that many hurdles for myself. It's exciting. I've done it on purpose. I've done it because it's meaningful. They're challenges that I want to achieve. So that's a use, got the right story going on in my whole biological whole system, versus saying to myself, these are the things that I want and it's going to cost me X and stress to get there. So you've got to be able to make sure that you get the perception and the narrative right so that you can really thrive through your next evolution. So good stress, use stress as a reminder, as healthy benefits. And when we think about optimum performance and you really thriving, depending on what role you're in or thriving in your life, then use stress is really healthy. And we want to be able to invite in as much as that as you find meaningful to you. So from an adaptive performance perspective, understanding then that homeostasis, that great balancing act between order and life, there can be quite a lot of chaos. So we make sure that we understand when we are in eustress as a state, we are much more in a creation type state. So we work optimally then when our whole system is balanced around understanding the eustress of growth. And then what does it take to actually rest and repair with that in mind? So when we have an order of, if I look at, the next 12 months, I'm thinking there's lots of eustress challenges there, but I'm going to absolutely grow through those. Doesn't mean they're not going to be challenging or uncomfortable, but I also have to make sure that I maintain a rest and repair schedule. My whole system needs that mentally, socially, physically, emotionally, all the different facets. We need growing, resting, and repairing. Other than that, I would be in a state of survival, distress, and stress that's leading to fight or flight as a way of being, or just numbing out or shutting down. So there's an invitation to consider how many habits do you have that really are, numbing out habits that are helping you cope. But just because you might have the wrong narrative going around how much distress you think you have in your life versus actually getting the story straight and getting the narrative straight. So it is around a fine balancing act. Some things are absolutely going to cause distress, but allow those be. It doesn't mean that everything does. So it's a balancing act. And you've got to make sure that you are doing a controlled, active balance for yourself, controlling how are you operating from a survival perspective when the time comes, or if needed, or that, incidences of chaos happen. But mostly we want to make sure that we're addressing how do we create a resilience around making sure that we are growing ourselves as our best human spirits, and we are creating ways that we are resting and repairing as a function of being human for sure. So to address what to do, we have to make sure that we pay attention to establishing a balanced perspective. And that's the first thing that I do with any client, is ensure that they have a balanced perspective. What is real threats and what drives real threat? What drives them into survival mode, where they are avoiding things or moving away from stuff? Whereas we want to be able to make sure that we are designing a path forward that is rewarding, that you are moving towards doing the things you want to, and also moving forward with the balanced perspective of, I can see the benefit in that, I can see the negative in that, and how do you assess that and give yourself the space and time to do that? The second step then, in order to boost your adaptive capacity, is to make sure that you have refreshing self-care routines. Physical, mental, emotional, social. What do you do to make sure that you are as expressive as a human system as you need to be? What is your self-care routine? And again, part of understanding that is establishing a rhythm. So I operate very differently in the summer than I do in the autumn. I have different routines in the winter than I do in the spring. But again, it's getting that awareness. It might be that you're aligning your, how you're set up to other schedules of systems that you are connected to, maybe in your home environment or your business environment. And how do you make sure that you are respecting all of those? So balanced perspective is something you need to pay attention to all the time, making sure you have and you are refreshing your self-care routines. And again, refreshing too could mean you're at different ages and stages. It looks different. It might be that there's things that are getting in your way. So again, looking at how do you freshen them up, how do you refresh them, and make sure that you are paying attention to it, not just for a period of time during the year, but it becomes, part of your daily habitual routine. And making sure then you are establishing a rhythm and checking back in on that rhythm, and does it fit with you? So again, I often people come to me and go, well, somebody else told me to do this and this is what worked for them. So, well, how do you know it was going to work for you? Have you tried it on? No, well, if they said it works, it's going to work. Well, how do you know? Because they haven't got your life. They haven't got your lifestyle. So you have to own your own rhythm and then make things work for you around that. So back to making sure then we are controlling the active balance is that personal responsibility piece. So some reflective questions for you to be taking away and thinking about. Who and what helps you get perspective? Who and what helps you get perspective? How often do you seek other people's perspectives or other perspectives? How do you refresh your own energies? How do you know your own capacity and its limits? What happens when you face something unexpected or demanding? What happens to you? How do you manage your own rhythm? How do you say no to others and say yes to you? The first way to answer those questions is to be asking yourself, how satisfied today are you in each one of these? How satisfied today are you in each one of these? Then it's to really go into the questions and reflect on, what would I do differently? What are the actions that I would take, given the context of your life, given the asks you have of yourself? And then thinking, right, how do I actually measure success with that in mind? So step by step by step. And in terms of leaving you with something to really work on, this is a model I call the ABLE model. So it's for us to be able to take something away and go, how am I really building my ability? Am I able to be resilient? And you are. First step is awareness in present time. There's no point in thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow when you're trying to control the biology of the world in front of your eyes right now. It's the same worrying about what happened yesterday. Actually, as human systems, we're designed not to hold on to stuff. So we've got to think about, how do I shift that out of the way? How do I recruit the support I need in order to help me step back into present time? Awareness in present time is key. Fundamentally, that is actually the place to start. How do I start to understand what it is that I really value? What it is that's going to really bring me what I want in terms of, joy and creation, and making sure that I'm maximizing my one life. The second step is to think about that balancing the growth, rest, and repair. It's a balancing act. We're not always looking to be growing. I often love the farmer's analogy. In the winter time, everything is planted so you can reap the rewards later. So again, what is the mindset you have around that? So balancing the growth, rest, and repair piece fits then back in with that rhythm piece. Next thing is about learning to let go. That is a skill in itself. And again, a lot of people are rewarded for, carrying things with them that really they should have let go a long time ago. So it might be part of your story. It might be part of a narrative that you're carrying around, but ultimately you're the one it's costing. So learn to let go. So figure that out and get the right support, but ultimately learn to let go. And next thing is to evaluate how you're getting on. It is an evaluation. It's a mindset of mental strength will be to evaluate what's working and what can you do better. What's working and what can you do better. And over time, you will be much more able to be resilient given the context of the world in front of our eyes. So awareness in present time, balance the growth, rest, and repair, really learn to let go and be kind to yourselves as you're doing that. And then evaluate what's working and what could you do better, step by step by step. I'm going to stop there and we'll see where we are from a questions perspective. Hopefully that was landing.
Great, Rochelle, thanks a million. I think at the start, when you're setting the context, you mentioned create a space to make better decisions. And I think we've created a space over the last 40 minutes for people to kind of to reflect and review what they're doing. And I think what struck me was the way you positioned for us to look at saving energy and power that we can survive and thrive. And I think, look, as I said at the outset, we're at the end of a very challenging year for people. Bit of chaos thrown in, a lot of change, and I think it's perfect timing now for us to as we get into the Christmas period, to rest and repair. As you say, be kind to ourselves, right? So I think, look, that's key. Can I ask just a question, and we'll go to the group then after that. As any other questions? You mentioned there about, I suppose it's people related, and you said to access more resources to be capable and probably cope more. What does that look like? So, you know, again, I suppose it's to me, I'm thinking of networks and groups, but is that just it, or is there more to it? So where you mentioned access more resources. So what does that look like?
Well, I think
Apart from a session like this today.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I mean, my business is I'm a performance and executive leadership coach. So again, sometimes people get confused between the need for counseling or the need for coaching.
Yeah.
And again, if you are trying to help if you're going to try and help yourself work on the world behind your eyes, definitely choose to challenge yourself to work with somebody who's actually going to challenge your perspective. Yeah. And ultimately, a coach should be leaving you feeling more resourced about you, not from being told what to do, but ultimately from helping you build more capacity, helping you find that extra level of resourcefulness. And again, it is all about making sure that you bring into your life as much as you can, as much perspective as possible, and you'll get lots of perspective from bringing as many people into your life as possible, and in different scenarios, and in different coming from different walks of life. And again, we tend to socialize with the same sorts of people. So again, find a way to network outside your comfort zone is my advice there.
Okay. And actually just a question that's come in, and I think linked into the ABLE model, which you said to let go, but also to be able to say no, right? So Pat asked, say no and not trying to help everyone is my challenge. How do I convince myself to change? Really good question, Pat.
Right. So when I'm working with clients on boundaries, for example, one of the boundaries to create, in order for me to say no to this, the second part of that statement is, what am I actually saying yes to? Because sometimes our perspective goes to, oh my God, I'm giving all this up, or something's going to get in the way of this. But actually it's opening a door to the things that we're actually going to say yes to. So we need to create the right perspective, and that's a balancing act. If I'm going to say no to this, what am I saying yes to? If I'm going to say yes to this, what I'm going to say no to? That's the correct balance.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Claire's question. If I feel like I'm just coping, not growing, does it make much effort to assess whether my de-stress is actually eustress? So I learned something new today: eustress and de-stress. That's for sure. The two types.
Vital to understand the difference. Yeah. Give me the question again. It didn't quite land.
Yeah. So if I feel like I'm just coping, not growing, does it make much effort to assess whether my de-stress is actually eustress?
It doesn't take much effort, but it is about really starting to order the context of your life. What is it that's a priority for you? What is it that you actually need to pay attention to? Is it something that's chaotic, that's going to come and go? So a lot of people can, we're chaos capable, which means in our normal rhythm and routine, we can have something happen to a family member that might be, some sort of chaos that comes along for 6 months, and then you get back into routine again. It might be that you get sick for 2 weeks, which happened to me. So again, it's starting to say to ourselves, this is a little bit of chaos. It's a much kinder story, and go, actually, this chaos is going to move out of the way. So what are the chaoses that we can't control? But at the same time, how do we ensure that we are on track, making sure that we are and creating the type of stresses that actually make us excited to get out of bed every day and go, come on, let's have it.
Yeah, and it's back to self-awareness and self-regulation and what you allude to, the inner capacity, our inner self, so understanding ourselves a bit better. Any other kind of, so you've given us the ABLE model. Anything you talked about, resilience has changed from the last 5-10 years. Where do you see it going? What's the, in a very, like, you look at the world we're living in today, geopolitically, quite disrupted. Where do you see it going now? The topic of resilience and in the coming years. Where's your crystal ball? What's it telling us?
I think the brilliant thing around understanding all the new neuroscience that's coming along is that there is so much evidence to how actually able we are, given that we don't give our power away to other people telling us we can't. But there are, and we've got to say to ourselves, it is just about being open to learning the new skills. And it might be a skill around building a mindset. It might, building the correct mindset, the skill around building a perceptional balance. These are all skills that we need today that we didn't need 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And when we talk about the speed of change, it's insane how much the speed of change is changing. And AI is just about to disrupt the whole thing again. So we are living in a landscape where the world in front of our eyes, actually, we need to, sometimes I got a client, I invited a client yesterday to do a bit of a self-awareness assessment because she came so stressed. And what we did and what I invited her to do away from me was to consider everything that's brilliant in her life that happens without her having to do anything. And it didn't take her long to figure out there's a lot that we can't control. Some of it's great and some of it's not great. So what are we going to keep our power around is what are the things that we can actually do differently, actions every day, those granular choices. And ultimately, lots of us know what we should be doing. So we just need to get on and actually do it.
Get on, have the rhythm, get into the habits of it, and I think you're back to it. I think we're more, you said earlier, chaos capable. So I think it's being able to be confident that look, we're able to bounce back and we're resilient. Question from Sarah, she works in tech industry. There are people whose role is to keep the web safe, which means reviewing distressing content. Are there specific programs or the support that for reviewers' well-being? Is there anything on that, or is that something for Sarah to be?
That's the kind of thing that I really hope they develop an AI technology that's not necessary for any human to manage that. I couldn't imagine doing it, and for sure that's going to cause some kind of PTSD that they're going to need a lot of human to human support to be able to get past and get over. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
No, I agree. Last question, we'll wrap up then. Is there one takeaway for people to start doing today, which you think is the most vital thing to do?
Get present. Okay. That presencing piece is the power. Your entire life is in. I always, when I'm starting up, and you know this, David, when I'm facilitating on behalf of Irish Times Training, I stand at the top of the room and I say to everybody, we are never getting this time back. We might as well have fun. And it goes, everybody kind of gets a laugh and goes, oh yeah, we're never getting this time back. Let's actually engage in being in our lives today. We spend, and we're invited, by the way, to spend so much time thinking about the past because it's a marketable product. It is easy for people to be able to start to get to sell you stuff in managing what happened to you in the past. And what about the future? We start to worry then about the future. So think about yourself like a commodity that's not for sale. Your present is your gift, and get present and get the support to stay present. Your resilience will really fly after that.
Brilliant. Love it. Be present. Right. Okay. We'll all go away with that action, and really appreciate it. Rochelle, thank you very much for the last 45 minutes. It was a really, really informative session. And as I said, this is recorded, and we'll send out some of we'll send out the slides and the recording so people can just, I know some people are taking notes, etc. So really appreciate it. And look, I want to thank the group for their participation at the start. I think it's really important that people contribute and feel like they're being able to share their thoughts, etc. And just on thoughts, we have just want to finally close off on over the next few weeks, and as you get to downtime, you're going for a walk to walk off the turkey and the stuffing. We have a Change Your World of Work podcast, which we've developed this year with bringing the best business minds in the world And we've had Dave Ulrich, we've had Deborah Rowland and Kyan Krippendorf all talking about various different things, from strategy to change to HR, the future HR. We've also got a few more that are going to be coming out in the coming weeks. So watch this space. So if you get a chance, please download the Change Your World of Work app, and you'll be able to hear from those thought leaders. And finally, we have a program that's launching in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be delivered in less than 2 weeks. Anyone in the finance, the ESG, the space, we have a program that's covering the corporate sustainability reporting directive that is coming out on the 1st of January. It's a mandatory directive for certain organizations. So if it's of interest, please contact the team, or please share with any of your finance leads, ESG leads, compliance audit, etc. in the business. We've still got some room available for the program. So that's it. So look, as a wrap up, I want to thank you for joining us, your participation and your support throughout the year. Thank Rochelle and also the wider team at Irish Times Training, Kate and Claire. We've had a great Power Hour series for 2023. We're coming back to the screens in 2024. We have a number of new faces and new topics to cover of real relevance. So watch the space. We'll communicate that further. But without further ado, enjoy your afternoon, and hopefully you'll be more present for the next few hours. Okay, thanks a million and take care.